Hey guys, I'm going to give you a very nickel tour of the core, and we're going to include the hip when we're talking about the core, so we know that. Just so we have a reference point, so we know what we're talking about when we're dealing with the core. The core is such a complicated anatomical landmark or series of anatomical structures that you could literally write 3 or 4 voluminous books. We don't have time for that. It's a short article with some videos to accompany it. I want to impart to you the most important themes of our core anatomy. And again, our core is going to be everything minus our head and our neck, minus our shoulders or the ball and socket joints, which is this glenohumeral joint, minus the ball and socket joint, which we think of as the hip, where the femur ties into the pelvic basin. Now I've got a kind of a skeletal structure to show you guys. It's a poor anatomical rendering, but at least it's a structural rendering, so we can kind of make sense of what's going on with everything resected or stripped away. With our core, we have this thoracic cavity, our abdominal cavity, and our pelvic, basically our pelvis, right, which is an inanimate, a ring bone, which the levator ani or our pelvic floor sits on, like this, our levator ani. So we got the thoracic cavity, the abdominal cavity, and the pelvis. Obviously, we have the entire spinal column, which consists of 5 lumbar vertebrae, 12 thoracic, and 7 cervical or neck vertebrae. And you can see this shape of the spine with concavity, convexity, concavity in the lumbar spine. It's kind of like a tension bridge. So that's this kind of a skeletal rendering. I'm going to put this poor excuse for a cadaver on its face that I just broke off. The core. Anytime we're engaging in any activity, we have the potential for force leaks. So if I run and I don't have a rigid frame, the longer a race goes on, if I'm running, my foot hits the ground and there's any collapse in my trunk, then that's a force leak. I'm not effectively getting in and out of the ground. The same can be said if I'm riding a bike. Effective power transfer requires a stable pelvis and a stable trunk. When we think about the trunk or the core, we want to think in terms of this system, and the system that is designed to transmit and redirect forces. So, with a stable core, we're much more effective at producing force, overcoming inertia. And that goes for swimming, riding, running, MMA, any activity, physical activity you're going to engage in, any motion that your body endures, except for maybe if you're moving your fingers and your toes, those are the only times that your core is not involved. Anytime you reach to grab something. Obviously, anytime you're cycling, running, or swimming, all of those forces are transmitted through the trunk. Our trunk moves, our core moves in several different ways. Lateral flexion, rotational moments, flexion, extension. Those are the principal ways the spine works. And I also encourage you to think of vertical loads having utility. Anytime I'm under a squat bar or have anything overhead, that is providing a compressive load, a vertical load. And when we have a compressive force, what happens in response with our vertebral column, for instance, we think that compressive force produces intersegmental stability through our vertebral column. So it actually makes that vertebral column a little more rigid. So with core stability and core strength and strength of the hip, what we want is anatomy and fascia and soft tissue that can really effectively take forces and redirect them. So if I'm running, I'm going to apply a force to the ground, and that force is going to be transmitted into forward momentum. Same thing with cycling, same thing with swimming. The application of a force effectively to propel us forward in the desired plane of motion. So this article that we've written and the videos that accompany that, I want you to keep in mind the importance of having a strong, stable core that's going to prohibit collapse at the knee or help to prohibit inward rotation at the knee. It's going to help prohibit inward rotation at the ankle. It's going to provide rigidity and durability into the system. And without it, we know that each year, Americans who do not have a strong and stable core, there's a 60 to 70% chance that they're going to be sidelined due to some back injury or injury at the hip. What we're trying to do with this article and these videos that you're going to see is really reduce the risk of injury and enhance the performance that you're going to experience throughout the year. So that's a small, really brief intro into the core. You can contact me with any questions. I hope you enjoy this article and the videos that accompany it.